I think I may have stumbled upon a new investing strategy. I call it sleep through the opening bell. I overslept by an hour, came in, coffee maker on, this computer on, feed the hummingbird. He's got to be fed. But I took a look and I saw uh, NVIDIA, Rocket Lab, and Redwire were all down. They'd run up a bit, but then came right back down. Nice dip on all three of them. And so I'm thinking, who says the early bird gets the worm? I might start sleeping in a lot more. I mean, really, what's the rush to donate more money to the U.S. stock market, right? Anyway, so I'm scanning around and I saw something interesting today and I wanted to share it. If you've been following the market, which I know you have, you've probably noticed something interesting happening. Investors are becoming increasingly excited about the future of a SpaceX IPO and whether SpaceX actually goes public soon or not. Looks like it's gonna, but something else is already happening right now before the IPO. People are looking for ways to participate in the story of SpaceX and the bigger, broader story of space itself. And what's interesting is that many people still think of SpaceX as simply a rocket company. But these reports that I'm reading, they suggest the company's Starlink satellite network, Starlink, that it's become a major driver of both revenue and profitability for the company. In other words, investors aren't just looking at rockets anymore. They're looking at satellite communications, internet infrastructure, AI, and the possibility of entirely, completely brand new industries developing in orbit, in space. Things that are going to be happening out there where I'm not going. I have zero plans of leaving tierra firma, solid land. I'm not. You think I'm going to go in some rocket? Let somebody else get in the actual rocket. But you know what I'm saying. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff happening up there, and SpaceX it's gonna be prominent. Let's just say. So the whole, if you look at it, if you look at the whole story of SpaceX, it's become much bigger than just launching rockets and all that. And that's where it's getting interesting because it's starting to snowball. It has been, but I kind of wanted to make that point. And the issue, however, is investors can't buy SpaceX yet. It's still private. So when investors get excited about a company that they can't own, it's like, okay, well, we'll go for second best. If we can't get that yet, okay, but we're ready. We're chomping at the bit, we're ready. And so the smaller space related stocks, they've suddenly found themselves in the spotlight, as well as everybody else. Rocket Lab, AST SpaceMobile, Redwire, and there's a handful of other companies connected to rockets, satellites, communications, the broader space economy. Check out another one. I've been following this one and buying dips. It's called Saddle, SATL, or Satellite, or Satellogic is the full name, Satellogic. Great little company. That thing could take off. SATL. And this is So everyone's looking at these other stocks, and this isn't the first time that you and I have seen this happen. Because when AI, if you look back, when AI became the hottest story on Wall Street, investors didn't stop with Nvidia. They branched out. They started searching for the next Nvidia. And how about during the EV boom, electric vehicles? Investors didn't stop with Tesla. What else is out here besides Tesla? What else can I invest in? Because this is a burgeoning market. This is coming in. What else can I get in on now while the getting's good? While things are still inexpensive. So, the next Tesla, it's kind of that's like a pattern. That's how things happen, right? And throughout market history, whenever a major story captures people's imagination, investors start looking for related opportunities. And sometimes those opportunities turn out to be real winners. Sometimes they don't. But the psychology remains consistent. One new really killer thing comes to the fore, and then everyone's like, okay, fine, that's there, but what else? Where else can I go? What is similar to it? What is in its industry that I can also invest in? It gets people excited. I don't blame them, because we don't simply invest in earnings. We invest in stories. We invest in narrative. We invest in possibility. We invest in futures that we can imagine. If I can imagine it, I'm going to invest in it, because that's 10 years down the road, and the stock is relatively inexpensive now. So maybe I can buy it and hang on to it. Everybody's thinking that. But, right now, there are not a lot of stories out there that capture the imagination like space. Space is king right now. Those rocket launches are amazing to watch. Those things, the satellite networks, the global communication in an instant. I'm here and you're other side of the world, and we're talking, in real time, and it's instantaneous. That's unbelievable, and that's because of satellites. And so the possibility of an entirely new industry continuing to expand over the coming decades, space related, that's an exciting narrative. And investors are responding to that. People are pumped up. Rocket Lab, for example, Rocket Lab has attracted attention because it already has launch capability, government contract, plural, growing revenue, ambitious plans for a larger neutron rocket. AST SpaceMobile it's generated excitement because it's attempting something that sounds almost futuristic. Connecting ordinary smartphones directly to satellites in space. That is killer. Sign me up. I want that, and I know you want it too. And whether these companies ultimately succeed remains to be seen, because, they both face substantial execution risk. They both trade at valuations that already reflect significant optimism. They're a bit high, possibly. You could argue the case. And both still have major milestones ahead. But that's not necessarily what makes this story interesting. I think what makes it interesting is what it reveals about investor behavior. The market is often a reflection of human anticipation. People don't only react to what's happening today. We react to what we think might happen tomorrow. I buy today what I'd like to hang on to overnight, because maybe tomorrow this thing's, it's one news story away from taking off. So let me buy it today and sit on it and see what happens. Because yeah, there might be a minimal payday today, but if I wait till tomorrow, if I wait till next week, it could really pay off. So that's pretty much what we're trying to do. So momentum, and that's where momentum comes in. That's where speculation comes in. That's where opportunity comes in, and risk. That's why God invented stop loss. Thank you, God. Thank you for that. That comes in handy. But there's a whole art to that too, though, because what happens? You put a stop loss up too high, you lose your shares. What happens when you go too low? You lose what you had. So the question that investors, that we always ask ourselves, is simple. That I should ask myself, am I buying a business or am I buying a story? How much of what I'm buying is hype? In other words, how much of what I'm buying is emotion over fact? You know what I mean? Because a story, stories and people can drive prices much higher just by talking about it. Just by, an article appears and all of a sudden you watch the volume come up because of one article, and then everyone starts buying it. So it's amazing how these things work. But one thing seems clear: even before any potential SpaceX IPO arrives, investors are already positioning themselves for the possibility. The SpaceX effect is underway. And that's going to be fascinating to see and to watch where that goes, where that leads to next. And I'll see you next time.